We are back. Week 3 is starting. We just had Thursday night football yesterday, yet again on Amazon. Jimmy is over. It looks like he's over in California today. Jed is in the suburb of Illinois, and I am sitting here at the office in the city of Chicago on the south side. Welcome.
Morning.
Did you see that fumble yesterday by Najee Harris, which cost me 4 points on my fantasy? It was the dumbest play where it was like 2 seconds left, and all they could have done is just left it alone, and he ended up getting a fumble.
That's the worst. Like some last minute thing. I don't know if you guys noticed. We didn't talk about it, but there was a Kyler Murray stat correction. I think it was week 1. It wasn't a huge move, but it was like 0.5. And in my mind, I was thinking, boy, somebody lost because of that.
Yeah.
As we talked before we begin, Jim, just to let you know, there's a bunch of different lights scattered all over your.
It went out of focus or something.
Yeah. On your end here, Jed, is quick question for you. Are you enjoying this Amazon platform?
So I have Amazon Prime, but through my brother-in-law. Like we got grandfathered in somehow. So we've been using his like Amazon. So I don't have access to the games. And so I'm not paying for it. But I've been hearing that they're saying the second week in a row that the stream was really choppy and not really smooth. But I was reading, I think one of you guys were mentioning how many signups they had. So you can see why they're doing it.
Yeah. Because a lot of times you're charging higher for what do you call it for
Prime, for Amazon Prime.
Commercial because you can't see commercial. Then you're promoting Amazon products. Then you're promoting new Amazon movies. All of that stuff.
Yep. No, it's very smart as far as the integration across all those channels. It's making it makes all of Amazon's data like even more valuable. So it'll be interesting to see how many other folks try to go down this path. But no, I personally don't have the stream.
I don't even know, Jed, how much Amazon Prime membership is. This $70 a year or even more than that?
I want to say
I think it was $99, right?
$100.
Yeah, let me check really fast. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Got it. Let me actually click on here in terms of our slide 1. Amari Cooper tops 100 yards in week 3. He had a terrible week 1 here, Jed, but look, he's been doing very well. I have Amari Cooper in one of my leagues, and he actually scored 24 points for me.
Hey, the Browns are 2-1. They really should be 3-0 if you think about it. It's scary. To me, this is kind of a nightmare scenario for the league. Basically, if the Browns end up going Watson's suspended 6 games or 8 games?
I think it was 11 games.
It was 11 games?
I thought so.
Is it that long? Okay. So anyway, if the Browns end up going, let's say they can get into that over 500, and then you add a Watson to this team, man, they're going to be good. And so to me, this is the nightmare scenario for the league, because nobody wants to be seeing a champion, convicted sex offender, essentially. So it's going to be interesting, but that is a very good team. The strength of it is the defense. I've been impressed with Chubb, and Amari Cooper. I mean, we knew he could play, and I think people maybe undervalued him in Dallas, seeing the struggles with CeeDee Lamb now. I think people are realizing, man, Amari Cooper was probably what made that engine go.
Yeah, but totally. One of the things that you did see in terms of watching the broadcast, they were very good. They said, look, at Jacoby Brissett is in the rhythm. He makes all of his reads. He's in the pocket. He's protected well, and he's going through his first read, second read, third read, and now he's making the call. And so that actually is he has a lot of time to throw.
Yeah. The line is the strength.
The other impressive player yesterday was
Njoku.
Njoku. He caught 8 of 9 passes. I mean, he did really well yesterday.
Yeah, I was thinking he's an early waiver wire target, because I'm sure a lot of folks don't have him.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch?
Deshaun Watson is suspended 11 games.
Yeah, 11 games. Did you guys see the entire? I don't know if you watched the entire game, but there was a clip where they showed where Chubb was lifting like 600 pounds and he was doing squats. Did you see that? That was, I was like, that was pretty impressive. But he had a great game yesterday.
One more thing about Jacoby Brissett that I was very impressed by. They were showing his release point. It takes him 2.5 seconds to read all his receivers and make the throw. They said that's very, very fast. He's extremely efficient in his throwing.
Well, do you guys remember who he was backup to for many years? In
Seattle, wasn't it?
No, Tom Brady.
Oh, it was Brady.
Tom Brady, and he was backup to Tom Brady for like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Tom Brady on parent finger injury, he feels great, but yet at the same time, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin out of practice for the Bucks. And so a lot of times when Mike Evans gone, Jim, who do you even like at the Bucks this year? Are you even playing any of the Bucks receivers?
I'm not playing him, but the person to watch is Cole Beasley, who they just signed off the way as a free agent. I actually think what they got Rashard Perriman, they got Scotty Miller, and they got Cole Beasley, right? My guess is the number one receiver will be Rashard Perriman this week.
Yep.
But I think Cole Beasley, give him a week or two, he'll be up there as well, too. And hopefully by the middle of the season, you'll get Jones and Godwin back as well, too. And you'll get Mike Evans back next week.
They watch the if you have Jones and you're desperate at receiver, watch the news ticker on Sunday morning, because he's a guy that doesn't need practice to play and has done that through his career. So I would not be surprised if come warm up times he's out there and all of a sudden he's declared as active.
Yeah. Give me 1 minute here.
This is the type of situation where you wish that a Gronkowski was still out there, because he at least provided some sort of stability for Tom Brady.
Hey, going back before I go over to Geno Smith and talk about Seattle, talk a little bit about Pittsburgh Steelers as well too. Jim, I mean, besides Najee Harris and all that other stuff, is Mitchell Trubisky threw for 207 yards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he did okay, but it's not like you're excited about any of the receivers, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, all of that different stuff. Are you anticipating eventually they're going to move to Kenny Pickett here sooner rather than later?
Oh yeah, I mean, even yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw the game. There were people already calling for Pickett. I think this past week, all over Pittsburgh, they were reporting that Pickett was the person that they're calling for. Here's my thing. My guess is that, look, he's on a pretty hot seat. If he doesn't win next week, they're going to have to be forced to go to Pickett. And actually, I do think that will bode well for Claypool, that'll bode well for Deontay Johnson, as well as George Pickens. So for me, when I'm looking at free agency, like for instance, Tommy just dropped George Pickens, I'll go pick him up, because I actually do think that a Pickett will be good for these guys.
Yeah, I like Pickens. If you guys saw that catch he had yesterday, it's the early candidate for catch of the season. So yeah, I like Pickens a lot. So but again, it's a stash. If you can pick him for the second half of the season, if you have room on your bench, I would definitely go for him.
No, but the hard thing is, right, like in one of the leagues where Pickens just got dropped, I got DeAndre Hopkins, and I've got, if you have a Godwin on there. And so the question is, who do you drop in favor of Pickens, right? Or do you? So those are some of the things that you're looking at on your league right now.
Yeah, across the league, I've been still holding on to Alexander Madison in some of the leagues, just in case a lot of times they make that switch over to Dalvin Cook. So that's something I've been holding on to.
No. I mean, we talked about that last week. Look, I mean, last week he only did 30 yards of rushing. At some point, we know he's never going to play the entire season. So for me, holding a Madison is actually always really smart, because he's going to come in with double digits at some point this season.
Yeah, Geno Smith, how the offense needs to change. We need to score more. So we're not talking about Geno Smith. I'm actually not talking about Rashad Penny. He's been dropped in a lot of different leagues. Are you picking him up if you see Rashad Penny on the waiver?
I saw that actually, and I thought about it because of the split. They were worried about the timeshare. He didn't get as many carries, and if it's a split situation, both the backs really are valuable. I mean, personally, depends. If you need a running back, I think he's. And you have the time to wait. I'd like to give it another week to see how he plays out. But we know the talent is there, so I definitely did see that and was considering that pickup.
Yeah, Jim, Rams bring back running back Malcolm Brown, adding him to the practice squad. I still love Cam Akers. With Malcolm Brown, a lot of times, what does it say about Cam Akers and what you feel about Cam Akers?
See, I think I'm a little different than you. I mean, I'm not entirely sure Cam Akers is 100%, right? So my guess is that's one of the reasons why they're slow in bringing him back. I still think Henderson at the end of the day will be the number one running back. I'm not sold on Cam Akers.
But I would say again, and this is where I've been hedging with Tommy a little bit, is that Akers really out carried Henderson by quite a bit. I think it was 17-11, I want to say, or maybe 17-9. So that's the thing to watch. I think you're right. They could have been maybe, just making sure that the injury was okay and just kind of managing his workload. But if you see that split continue to rise this week, then I think Cam Akers, you know that they're really targeting him more as the number one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey,
Yeah.
which, by the way, we were just talking about our veto of a trade. All right, you and I are in this league. It's a big team, and you traded me Cam Akers and George Kittles for
Mark Andrews and
And
Miles
Miles
Sanders.
Sanders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it basically was a Miles Sanders for Cam Akers swap, which to me is I think Sanders has a very low ceiling. Like I don't think he can necessarily produce a lot, but he's going to be more consistent for the next probably 2-3 weeks, which is what I need. I already started off with a loss in that league. So that's what I was thinking. I do think Cam Akers longer term maybe is the better play, but sometimes you got to trade for now versus later.
And wouldn't you say a lot of times what you said in terms of Miles Sanders, you're probably going to get anywhere from 9 to 12 points from him every single week. Cam Akers, as the season progressed, has the ability to get you 20-something points. Now, Mark Andrews, I'm losing a lot out potentially on Mark Andrews because of what he's able to do with Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, with Jimmy Garoppolo coming back in, now George Kittles, who has a great relationship with Jimmy Garoppolo, it could be one of your 1A or number 2 receiver, which I think would be good.
Oh, I think Kittles and Andrews it's basically an even swap. Like I don't see either difference. Depending on injury, they're basically going to be 1A and 1B. So I don't think there's really much issue there. It's more about Sanders versus Akers to me. And by the way, that trade got vetoed. So our league vetoed that trade, which kind of blew me away. I was a little bit mad about because I was like, I felt like it was pretty fair. But we'll see. We'll see if we can work something else out. But I was surprised.
Yeah. Hey, no, I would probably say I would totally agree with it. Now, here's an unfair trade. Someone wanted my Deebo Samuel.
Deebo Samuel. Yeah.
They wanted Deebo Samuel, and they offered me Travis Etienne and Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm sort of, that's an unfair trade right there.
See, I don't know. It depends because to me, ETN, there's more. Again, you're playing for potential.
It's all potential.
And Juju Smith-Schuster is definitely. Juju Smith-Schuster is definitely not to the level of Deebo.
Yeah.
And again, but even Deebo, you're playing for the potential of him back together with Jimmy G. So you just got to, they're unknowns.
I mean, here's the thing: for a trade like that, at the beginning of the year, you're like, oh, okay, maybe that might be valuable, right? But ETN, because of the split with James Robinson, just hasn't shown his potential. And who's the other one? Oh, Juju Smith, right? Like you can't trust any of the receivers right now for Kansas City. He's spreading it out so much. I thought maybe Juju might be the person he's going to go after, and right now every week you don't know who it is.
Now, with that said, someone in one of the leagues that Jimmy and I play with wanted Aaron Rodgers and traded me Juju Smith-Schuster for Aaron Rodgers. Okay, sure. I have Russell Wilson. I have Jalen Hurts. Sure, go ahead. Take Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think quarterback trades are always tricky because quarterbacks have a lot of different value beyond where they start. So it is tricky. But, we'll see. That's why I personally don't like to veto a lot of trades. I generally like to let trades go through because you never know what's going to happen. We really learned that, in our own league, right? When we saw who was it? It was the Kansas City quarterback got traded for Justin Jefferson. I remember at that time we thought that was like a bad trade. Really good trade.
Yep. Hey, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen remains limited in practice with Keenan Allen not playing in week 2, as well as Justin Herbert getting hurt in the ribs. Jet, if you had a chance to play Keenan Allen, Mike Williams will definitely be your number 1 wide receiver. Are you going to play him? Are you going to sit him? What are your thoughts on Keenan Allen?
Yeah, same thing as I was saying with Julio. You got to watch the wires on Sunday morning and see if he's out there in warmups, if they're declaring him to go. If he's ready, I would put him in. I mean, I think this offense, you can expect a lot of points out of it. But I actually have Mike Williams, so I'm very happy with Williams' position. We'll be starting him definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can play what he's averaged three touchdowns, I would say that he's been the number 2 fantasy quarterback, maybe 3, right? After Josh Allen and then also Lamar Jackson. So if you can play him, Justin Herbert is somebody and he's playing against Jacksonville. The last couple of quarterbacks that played in fantasy after Jacksonville all had huge Sundays.
Okay, but let me ask you a good question is I have to play 2 of the 4, and I know we're going to go early with the starter sit. Jim, which one would you pick? Pick 2 out of the 4. Would you do Cam Akers, Cordero Patterson, Keenan Allen, or actually 2 of the 3. Cam Akers, Cordero Patterson, or Keenan Allen?
I think I go with what Jed says. If Keenan Allen's not, I mean, Keenan Allen ideally you want to play, right? But right now, I mean, unless they give you some sort of, if you have to be forced to make a decision, I choose the first two before Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that too. I mean, running backs too, generally, you're gonna get more points there. And again, I like the potential of Cam Akers. Again, building on his workload last week. I think that's important. The Falcons, Atlanta is playing Seattle, so Cordell Patterson should get, some decent opportunities there. Expecting high scoring game there. And really Atlanta, I think Atlanta's 0-2, so expecting a first win for Atlanta.
By the way, speaking of Cordell Patterson, I've been picking up his backup, Tyler Agier. Because the last couple of weeks, or at least last week, what you're starting to see is Cordell Patterson has been splitting carries with this guy. And I'm interested to see what happens this game because some people said he's a good stash for the end of the season because he's really good and he might be the person who's going to start taking a bulk of the carries.
Yeah. And a lot of times with him he is one of your waiver wire pickups. He is one of your gems. He was the leading rusher over at BYU. He's a 3-down back, considered 3-down back, someone to definitely stash, especially if you're looking at someone in the waiver wire.
See, these are the things I don't know if you guys noticed. Like we were talking about how Jerry Jeudy in one of our leagues, I was hoping that no one saw him, and then Tommy ended up getting him for $20. But sometimes I want to be able to kind of pick up people without people noticing that I'm picking them up. And I'll just do it across all the leagues that I'm in.
Yeah. My biggest problem right now with my league is I have too many subpar players. I need to drop at least one. Out of this list, like Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Godwin, Hopkins, Damian Pierce. I need to drop one because I need a room for a kicker. So I'm trying to figure out, do I not play a kicker or do I need to drop one of these guys?
No, see the hard part, like out of that group, right? The hard part is you're waiting for potential because it's not out of that group, I most likely might really consider dropping an Ezekiel Elliott or figuring out a way to trade for him.
Wow, you would drop Zeke?
No, I mean, think about it. The last couple weeks, single-digit fantasy points out of that group, like the Godwins, the Pierce, all of them have potentials. Elliott's the person that I would consider trading and trying to get some value out of that.
Yeah. No one's falling for Elliott. I've even tried to trade him for defensive players and no one's picking him up.
That's funny. I was going to say maybe Godwin, just given the injury risk and, it's pretty crowded in Tampa. I don't know. That's a tough one, though.
Yeah. Next one. Christian McCaffrey.
I know. I saw that. I hate that. That guy, so, I mean, every year, and I kept him this year on waiver because I was like, I think he'll be fine. But seriously, if he gets injured, I'll be so mad.
That's why I stayed away.
Yeah.
Jed, the reason why I have this player, Xavier Howard, is he is going to be on Stephon Diggs. He is their best. They have wonderful matchups, and he always tends to shut all the wide receivers down. He may not even be playing this week. And so a lot of times, what does it say about Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs? Because Allen is just rolling and the Buffalo Bills are rolling here.
Yeah, that's a really important. It's interesting you put that in because, the Bills are 5-point favorites, but the Dolphins have been surprisingly strong. But yeah, that actually maybe would tilt me over then to pick the Bills. So that's really good intel.
But don't you guys think that it's going to be potentially a shootout, right? So if Buffalo's going to keep chugging that thing down to a Diggs, a Davis, or a Knox, Miami's going to be forced to go downfield as well too. And given what's going on last week, they're going to try to get it to Waddle. They're going to even Gesicki. Gesicki these days might have some potential fantasy value because they need him in the red zone.
Oh yeah, I still think fantasy wise, I'm playing all my Dolphins players, even though I don't think that they're going to necessarily win. But I'm definitely playing. I agree with you. I think it's going to be high scoring, so there'll be a lot of points to get.
The only thing I want to see is how will Tua do in week 3? Will we see the Tua in week 1 or will we see him in week 2? Is week 2 the start of something big? We don't know. Now the film has studied, people have studied him, all that stuff. What happens in week 3? Those are the things I want to look at.
The thing I'm grateful for Tua this week is on the waiver wires. My target this week was Garrett Williams. Garrett Wilson over from the Jets.
Yep.
And so everybody was going after Tua, and so it allowed me to go after Wilson from the as a waiver wire pickup.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit about Joe Flacco as well, too.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis says he's 100% playing versus Dolphins. I'm glad because I have Gabe Davis in a couple leagues. I really missed Gabe Davis last week. Jed, Michael Pittman, Shaquille Leonard.
I need both guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
But
practiced. That was
Sunday.
it's good. It's a good sign that they both made it through full practice. So I'm expecting both to play.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think Matt Ryan's pretty good, but he's going to need some receivers. And last week, just with him having Paris Campbell by himself, he's going to need Pittman on the field because that's how Jonathan Taylor also opens things up as well too.
Yeah, now remember, the Colts are playing the Chiefs, but it's at the Colts Stadium. So the Colts are one of the bigger underdogs. They're 6-point underdogs to the Chiefs. I actually like the Colts, not necessarily to win, but just to keep it close. The Colts haven't put together a good game. They should have been embarrassed because of last week. So I hope that they put it together for this game.
Yeah.
Jim, Jared Judy missed his second straight practice. There's a good chance he probably will not play.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm very excited about Cortland Sutton. There's KJ Hamler, but even the two running backs as well, too. But at the same time, Russell Wilson has not been doing well.
No, he hasn't. I mean, he's got 14, 15 fantasy points the last few weeks. Cortland Sutton, though, will elevate, I would say, into maybe the top 10, maybe the top 6 or 7 wide receivers this week in fantasy. But seriously, it was a good pickup. Tommy picked him up for $20 on the waiver wire this past week, and I was really paying attention. I bidded it for $18, and I lost.
Yeah. Hey, but Adam Schefter said, was just talking about it the other day. He says, hey, look, the biggest problem right now is Nathaniel Hackett's first-year coach, bad clock management. Has not about this clock management.
Yeah, and Wilson's been covering up for him, right? Because they've asked him a lot of questions, and he's talked about how they're friends, they're close, they're there. But seriously, every time that you watch any of these Broncos games, they've been criticizing him for clock man. But they also said for most first-year coaches, they don't recommend that they call plays as well as coach, which is what he's doing, and I think he's getting things mixed up.
But contrast that with Mike McDaniel, who used to be the offensive coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens, the wonderful, but not was last year the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. He has done very well in clock management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jed, Lamar Jackson has answered all questions about playing in the pocket. He has done well this year, very, very well. And more so, less about him. Look, you're going to play him every single week. What do you think about Rashad Bateman?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really good sign for the whole offense as a whole. We always typically only look at Mark Andrews, but I do think Bateman is someone you got to consider because if they're really starting to focus on more of the passing game. But, it's interesting. Belichick says this, but the bottom line is he had over 100 yards rushing last week too. So it's not like he's not running. It's just that the offense has really been clicking. Had a nice outing last week. So I would still just pay attention. I mean, I think Bateman, similar to, we've talked about the Pittsburgh receivers, Kansas City receivers. I mean, Bateman's probably a little bit higher than both those guys, a little bit more potential, but I'd still just watch.
Yeah, I've also been intrigued. I don't know what you guys think. I don't have J.K. Dobbins on any of my teams, but I've been monitoring him. I'm intrigued by him as well too, right? Because if the offense is clicking like it is, they're going to need a J.K. Dobbins just to alleviate some of the pressure. And so I hope that he's going to be healthy because I think if he is, he's actually going to add some pretty good value to some teams.
Now, Jed, the line for his New England is favored by 2.5 over Baltimore.
Yes, yeah, I was surprised to see that. Is that right? New England is. I thought Baltimore was favored. Let me see. Yeah, no, Baltimore is favored. Baltimore's 2.5.
Okay,
yeah, Baltimore's 2.5-point favorites. Yeah, which makes sense because it's at the Patriots Stadium. Patriots have been. It's interesting, man. Patriots have not looked great, so we'll see what happens. I would take Baltimore in this one if I could.
Yeah. Jim, if you had a chance, because I also see a lot of times Ramondre Stevenson has not been very, very good.
No.
And so a lot of times, are you playing him? Is he even, or is he just sitting on your bench?
No, he's just sitting on my bench. I've actually often thought about just dropping him, but last week he played, 65% of the snaps. Yeah. Damien Harris didn't play a lot of the parts of the second half because some people thought he was injured. And so that's the reason why I've kept him right now. But you don't know, right? Like it's a split. I mean, if it's the same thing again now, I'd be tempted to dump a Ramondre Stevenson and pick up a George Pickens or some of these other guys out there.
Jay, you know who we have not heard at all? Devontae Parker. You know how we were
I
talking about him
know,
early?
and I am
Nothing,
Yeah.
such a
nothing.
Devontae Parker fan. I don't know what is going on with the offense. I haven't watched New England this season, so I don't know. Maybe Mac Jones has not progressed as much as they had hoped, but
Yep.
it does feel like the Patriots are really just focused on the defensive side, keeping things low scoring and trying to win that way.
Yep.
But if you watch all the fantasy shows like ESPN and NFL Network, the one that they keep saying you would play is Jacoby Myers.
Mm.
Now, for me, he's not sexy at all. None of these New England guys are sexy from fantasy wise, but they keep talking about Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was hoping to hear a little bit about Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry. We haven't heard anything. I hear a lot about Ramondre Stevenson. I hear a lot about Jacoby Myers, but that's really about it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think with the quarterback, and they were they were saying that the same thing with Trubisky. They keep him to a certain place, right? Like Trubisky never until yesterday's game, he did not throw more than 15 yards, and I think that's what they're doing in New England as well too.
Jim, let's talk a little bit about Carson Wentz. Hey, look, who would have thought that he would be doing so well? Suddenly, Carson Wentz is doing. I saw that you made a trade for Chris Samuel or for
Curtis
Samuel.
Samuel, yeah, Curtis Samuel's good, yeah.
and
I
then now
actually like
Antonio
him.
Gibson has been okay too.
Yeah, and then also Robinson, the running back on injured reserve, he's supposed to come in, so I kind of stashed him in my injured reserve list. But they said, look, after Tua, Carson Wentz has thrown the most yards this year, thus far in the season, right? So maybe he's calmed down. But I actually like Curtis Samuel. McLaren has done pretty well for me.
Okay. I've been a little
Yeah.
disappointed by McLaren.
No, I mean, you're not expecting much. You're expecting double digit. He's consistent, If you're looking for like 20 or 30 points like a Jefferson, you're not getting that. But McLaren, last week had 19 points, or first week had 19 points, second week had 18 points. That's actually pretty good for me.
Yeah, I picked up Carson Wentz as my Dak Prescott fill-in, and he's been great. And
Yeah.
I've been thinking about I might even just keep it going. This game, so this is Philly at Washington in Washington. Philly is a 6-point favorite. I'll just say I might take Washington in that game because I think Philly has been flying high. Obviously, everyone's really high on them, but I want to see if they're the real deal. And I think Washington has been playing very well, and so I think they're going to give them a little run for their money. So I'm just going to say right here that I would take Washington in that game.
Yeah.
And I would tend to agree with you a little bit just because of the line, because I do love a Ron Rivera defense who always seems to do pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, there's the revenge factor here with Carson too, and I just think the Eagles need a little bit of I think they're just they're thinking Super Bowl and they need a little bit of that to be popped. I do think they're going to be good long term for the season, but I think right now it's coming a little bit too easy because you think about that first game with Detroit, they could have easily lost that game to Detroit, so they would be 1-1. It wouldn't be the same hype right now.
Yeah, Judge. Speaking of someone who is not doing well, the Chicago Bears. Besides David Montgomery, who are you playing? You're not playing Darnell Mooney. You're not playing Cole Kmet. Who else are you playing on the Chicago Bears?
Oh, well, I like Herbert. I like the running back situation, and they're playing.
Montgomery
the Bears,
did well last week.
Yeah, and the Bears are favored this weekend against the Texans. So I expect them to put together a good game today. I mean,
it's against Lovie Smith.
Yeah, the homecoming for Lovie. So there will be some. I think the Texans. So here's the thing. I think Lovie obviously he's really gonna want to win this game, right? So I think you could see them play Dameon Pierce a lot. I think he could really ride Pierce and say, hey, this is our only chance to win.
I've actually been going after Pierce in a number of trades. No one has bit yet, but I think you're right. I think after this game, I think they're going to force feed Pierce. I believe that as well too.
Yes, I love it. I love Pierce. Love Pierce.
Oh, you should drop him from my trade proposal then, Tommy. I didn't realize that. So
yeah, you know what? That's the one person I will not give up here. So I'll take a look at it. Hey, Jim, Zach Wilson is Jets' future, but look at this this article from the New York Post. But Robert Saleh must keep riding with Joe Flacco. What do you think of Joe Flacco?
You know what? I'm in favor of the hot hand, right? They said Wilson's supposed to come back maybe in the next game 5, game 6, most likely game 5. But I actually think they should stay with Flacco. I mean, look at Moore's been doing well. Wilson's, I think it's going to break out superstar. They got 2 good running backs. I say stay with the hot hand.
I agree with you in this situation. it's always easy. Basically, once you make the move, you can never take that back. And so, and then somebody like Flacco, who's older and is in a rhythm, you kind of break all of that. So I agree with you. I would say just stick with them. They're winning. Let them keep doing his thing. And then once he has a bad game, then you can just have a short leash and pull him.
Yep. But by the way, if any of you guys are betting, I would definitely put my bets on Matthew Stafford killing the Arizona Cardinals. And so I think he's going to throw a ton of yardage against a terrible Cardinals secretary. So that's something I'm going to put at least a couple of dollars on as a little wager.
I also think Kyler Murray, because they're playing the Rams, I think he's going to have a pretty good game as well, too, because he's going to have to keep up with Stafford and the Rams.
All right, let's go with matchups real fast. Jed, I'll start off with you, and I'm just going to go down the list, and I'm going to ask you what you think. If I had a choice between Cordero Patterson or Ezekiel Elliott, who am I playing or who am I sitting?
Ooh, well, we talked about Patterson. They're playing the Seahawks, so that's nice. Who's the other one? Zeke Elliott, you said?
Yep. Zeke Elliott, yeah.
Yeah, and Elliott, they're playing the Giants, so that's the Monday night game.
Yeah.
So you'd expect Zeke to actually play well there. I think I might roll with Zeke, and see if this might be the last chance. I've got Pollard, so I know he's been playing well, but the Cowboys are focusing on the rushing game, and they know they need to win this, so it might be a time for Zeke to shine.
No, I go with Cordell Patterson. I think Seattle's defense is not very strong. I think Mariota is doing pretty good. I think they're going to try to make sure that Kyle Pitts is actually relevant. Drake London is emerging as a quality receiver. I go with Cordell Patterson.
Yep. Jim, pick one of the three: Tony Pollard, Cam Akers, or Dameon Pierce.
I think we talked about this. I go with Dameon Pierce. I think Pierce is going to – I think they're going to force feed him this week. I think the way to beat the Bears is going to be the run game, and I think Lovie Smith knows that.
Jed, Darnell Mooney or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Oh,
both of
terrible.
them.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm taking Mooney. I'll take Mooney against the Houston Texans. Like I said, I think the Bears are going to be able to run, and once they establish that run, the passing game should follow. So I take Mooney.
Jed, have you seen what he's done at the start of the season? He's got
it's only been 2 weeks.
Two passes for like 0.5 yards, something ridiculous. I go with Juju.
Jim, Alan Lazard or Adam Thielen?
I go with Adam Thielen. Lazard, I know he's number one on the wide receiver, but I think they're going to just keep feeding the Jones and AJ Dillon. So I actually go with Thielen. And actually, I think because of what happened last week with Minnesota, they're going to want to redeem themselves. And so I expect big games from Jefferson and Thielen.
Yeah. Just to let you know, a lot of times Christian Watson is hurt with the ankle. Sammy Watkins is hurt with the ankle. So there's not a lot of wide receivers sitting there. Look at this. Are you making trade offers in the middle of our podcast?
Yes. Well, I canceled that one because I didn't. So I'm trying to figure out what the league didn't like. It's not you, Tommy. I know what you want. I can't figure out what the league didn't like. So I'm trying to make it balanced for the league.
So I was going to say, Jed, I don't think it's the Miles Sanders piece. I think that they're hesitant about the Kittle and Andrews piece. That's what if I were to guess, that's my guess.
That's what's bothering people.
I think that's because no one really knows, anything about some of these running backs, but they're looking at Kittle's and they're saying, well, he's injured, and they're looking at Andrews.
Yeah, I think a lot of times Kittles is so injury prone that league is hesitant about it. But for me, I'm willing to take a chance on it because Kittles has such a good rapport with Jimmy G and also Cam Akers. I think will do really, really well towards the second half of the season. That's what I'm banking on.
Okay, I'll try to figure it out without those guys.
All right, Jed, New York Jets, Breece Hall or Michael Carter-Williams?
Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall. He's starting to come on.
Yeah.
So again, I would say week 3, guys, especially for rookies, week 3, week 4, this is where you start to see teams saying, you know what, we're going to commit to this guy and we're going to play him out. And I think Breece Hall is one of those guys.
Yeah. With that said, my suggestion for people, if you have targeted a couple of players like a Wilson or Pierce or even a Pickens, right? Like some of these players, I go get them now because you're right. Usually around this time is when some of these rookies start breaking out.
Yeah. Jim, Jahan Dotson or Travis Etienne, 2 rookies that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I'll roll the dice again on ETN, only because I think they're playing the Chargers and they're going to need some offense. But I do like Dotson these days. But I'm going to roll the dice with ETN.
That's what I was gonna say. I
Yeah.
like ETN in that situation. I still think long term ETN's talent is going to play out.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just James
yeah.
Robinson. They've been saying, he knows how to pick up the blitzes. He's a better
Mhm.
pass protection. But I think ETN is eventually going to be the guy that takes over.
Yeah.
Jed, if I'm struggling with the tight end and I'm sitting these guys on, see these guys on
Logan Thomas. Logan
actually, I
Thomas,
was going to
man.
ask you, Logan Thomas, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, or Smith.
Yeah, I like Logan
Not Cole
Thomas.
Kmet. No.
Yeah, not Cole Kmet. Irv Smith had a decent game. He had a touchdown, I believe.
Gerald
Yeah.
Everett. Gerald Everett seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, I agree there.
There's a couple of tight ends actually who I've been surprised by because all of them last week scored double figures, right? Eden Njoku from Cleveland, and they're all pretty decent.
Yeah, Jim, Melvin Gordon or Ramondre Stevenson.
I don't think I would. You know what? I would roll on Ramondre out of those two, only because he played 65% of snaps last week, and Javonte Williams is still the number one back in Denver.
Jed, Robert Woods or James Robinson.
Oh, James. Sorry.
Yeah, running back. Running back over.
Yeah, Robert Woods has not done well this year.
Two more, Jim. Tyler Lockett or Devontae Smith.
You know, I go with Devontae. I actually like Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I'll go with Devontae. And last week, if you noticed, week one, he did not do anything. Last week, the first play of the game, they went straight for Devontae. So I think they're going to want to make sure they keep Devontae in the game.
Jed, last one. Josh Jacobs or Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. Like I said, I'm playing Washington this week. I think they're going to win. So
yeah,
I'll play Gibson.
Got it. Two more things that I want to talk with you about. I want to switch gears from fantasy football to fantasy basketball. As we're thinking about fantasy basketball here and draft season is all starting, two things. Is there one player that you're sitting there, man, besides the superstars, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, all that stuff, Giannis, who's one player you're looking at and said, man, I'm pretty excited about this guy. I'm going to look at this guy.
Well, I think one you got to think about is Zion, right?
Yes.
Zion, all reports are that
Yes.
he's looking really good in preseason. He's supposed to be in the best shape of his life.
Yes.
So I'd be excited to see, and it'll be interesting in our keeper league. We're in a keeper league for basketball.
If anyone's going to keep Zion.
If they're going to keep Zion or draft him, that's a really tough decision for me. I have to pick between Siakam and DeAndre. I have to pick between dropping one. I got to drop one of those two guys, and it's a tough call.
See, I would go for Siakam. I actually think that he's more of the number one for the Raptors than Ayton is. But I would go for Siakam.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm leaning, but that's the decision I have to make. It's kind of a tough call.
Wait, it's Siakam versus DeJounte Murray, right?
No. I'm keeping Murray. Murray is really good. I think he was one of the guys. So I won last year, and I think he's one of the guys that you don't realize how good he is across so many categories. And so he's one of the guys that just fills it up.
Which team is he? He's in Atlanta now, right?
Yeah, Atlanta with Trae Young.
And I've got Trae Young too. So
and remember, San Antonio has always been pretty conservative. And so the fact that now he's in Atlanta and they're going to open it up for him and let him go, you're right. I think he's going to be a pretty good player this year.
Hey, seriously, Zion Williamson, all reports, the guy has lost weight. He's eating healthy. He's exercising. He's trying to prevent his injuries from happening again. I'm really looking forward to see how Zion Williamson does.
See, I'm opposite. I'm not taking a chance on Zion this year because I think he hasn't proven himself. So I go for somebody else. People are going to go high for Zion because of the name, but I wouldn't go for him.
Yeah.
The other person I would say that. Oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, I like Anthony Edwards. I actually think that Anthony Edwards is going to have a big year. I also think Donovan Mitchell is the type of person that you want to go after hard too.
Yeah, but
Donovan Mitchell is interesting.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jed.
Oh no, I was just gonna say for me it's LaMelo Ball, and I have him, so I just think that his progression. I mean, this guy really surprised me, his rookie year, and then I think his continued progression is gonna be there, and so he's someone I'm excited about.
Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Celtics suspends head coach Udoka for 2022 to 2023 season. For violations against the team because he had an inappropriate affair with the team staffer, and he's married. Now, at the same time,
consensual affair.
yes.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
here's my thing: is I am totally. A lot of times, we're all faith-based, right? And in some sense, having an affair is wrong. Would you suspend your head coach for a year for as a team role? I felt like it was a little out of character and a little too much.
To be honest, for me, I totally agree. Should not have been suspended. Should have been a fine, number one. But number two, the fact that they suspended him and there are tons of other white coaches who have done the same thing who did not get suspended really bothers me. I mean, it just smacks of like that it was unfair treatment for this guy. I know it's his own team, so it's tough to like say that, oh, they're trying, they're racially biased or motivated, but it sure looks that way to me from the outside, because you can't tell me there weren't other coaches who have had affairs across all the other teams and over these years.
I don't know. I didn't see it this way. I mean, but look at him. Last year, he was 51-31. I mean, 51-31. That was his record, right? He took him to the NBA Finals. I felt like I was like, good for the Celtics to suspend somebody like him because he's such a good coach. I felt like they had ball to be able to do that. So I looked at it from that perspective.
See, that's funny because my perspective was it meant that the woman was connected to someone pretty high. Who basically said, we're going to really screw this guy.
See, that's the thing is you don't know. They didn't say who it was. I did think it was pretty heavy. I was like, I thought they would maybe suspend him for half a season, but I was like, oh, that's a big suspension for something like that.
First of all, I see these rules in the military, right? A lot of times you compromise the mission and all that stuff. It's the NBA Basketball Association. How is that a team rule? That was the one thing I was thinking about. It's not life or death situation. And he's such a good coach. And so, okay, if he was a bad coach, I could understand it, but he was a very good coach.
Well, okay, so I actually asked the same thing, but yesterday ESPN kind of did explain something, which made sense because they said it's essentially they don't want their bosses using their influence and power to force or even have any situation where it seems like they're forcing somebody to have a relationship with them because of that, right?
Oh, no one's disagreeing that that's wrong. Nobody is disagreeing that he should not have done that and he shouldn't pay some penalty. It's just a question of the severity. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is an age-old situation. All of us have worked at companies where there were bosses who took their authority and use their authority inappropriately, and they should certainly pay the price. But that price, like, to me, doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing: I've been a Lakers fan for a long time before I became a Bulls fan. I've never liked the Celtics. This just makes it even easier to really not like the Celtics.
I really thought when they first announced it, 12 games, whatever, sure, whatever, first month of the season, something like that.
Yeah.
Hey,
the other thing too is, did you see the list of names emerging to people who are interested in buying the Phoenix Suns? There's some big names attached to that.
Oh no, that's interesting.
Jeff Bezos is one of them. Robert Iger, the Disney executive. There's a couple NBA players who are mulling around, but there's some big names that are attached to it. And Sarver, did you know Sarver bought the team from Jerry Colangelo for $400 million, and he's expected to sell it for $2.5 billion.
And
That's
maybe
crazy.
at $3 billion. There's a chance it might sell for $3 billion.
That is crazy.
If you could be an NBA or NFL owner, you should always do it. Like, there's just no situation where that's not a good play.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I know CP3 has been interested in getting into ownership. I wonder if he's in that package, because that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, they also made an argument. A lot of times, Barack Obama has been wanting to get into sports and been add him as the face of your organization. Instant credibility right there.
Yeah, you look at any of the valuations of those teams, and oh my goodness, it's always a good thing. I've told my son this multiple times. My son's getting ready to go to college, and he's thinking about his career, and I'm always like, look, if you can ever be a sports franchise owner, do it, because it's like a good gig.
By the way, Jed, since you're a Lakers fan, I'm going to LA the first week in November. I've never been to the Lakers arena at Crypto and watched Lakers game. They're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. I got tickets in the
Nice
for $60. So
That's pretty good.
game.
Yeah, that's pretty
Oh,
good.
that's great. Yeah, I've been to the old stadium back in the day. Like I said, I grew up a Lakers fan. Magic Johnson, pretty much my favorite player all time. So I've been a huge Lakers fan until we got to Chicago, and then started, of course, watching the Bulls too.
Yeah.
But that's great. You should definitely
Yeah,
go. I'm actually hoping this Christmas we're going to be in Texas visiting my parents, and I want to catch
Dallas Cowboys.
well, the day before Christmas, it's the Philadelphia Eagles versus Dallas at the
Oh,
stadium.
yeah,
And so tickets are pretty expensive, but I think I want to try to catch that game if I can.
yeah. I would. Yeah.
Very good. All right, here we go. We'll see you on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll be in Florida this week, so we'll find some time to talk.